And so a logical question, Senator Clinton, I'd like you to answer this. Should NAFTA be scrapped or changed?
Well, it should be changed. You know, I think it's important for us to look at the entire context here. You know, you have winners and losers from trade right here in Iowa. People who are gaining because we're exporting, and people who, John has rightly pointed out, have lost their jobs. I want to be a president who focuses on smart, pro-American trade. I will review every trade agreement. I'm going to ask for revisions that I think will actually benefit our country, particularly our workers, our exporters, and I'm going to go to the international community and get the kind of enforceable agreements and standards on labor and environment that we have been seeking as Democrats, because we need to make it clear to the rest of the world that we are an open society. We believe in trade, but we don't want to be the trade patsies of the world. We want to have an equivocal, balanced relationship, and that's what I will do as president, and NAFTA will be part of that review to try to reform and improve it.
Senator Obama, what do you think about that?
Well, there's no doubt that NAFTA needs to be amended, and I've already said that I would contact the President of Mexico and the Prime Minister of Canada to make sure that the labor and environmental agreements are actually enforceable in the same way that patent protections and other things that are important to corporate America are enforceable. But I did want to just go back briefly to the issue of trade and human rights that you had mentioned earlier. I think that folks made a terrific point that we have to stand for human rights, and that should be part of the trade equation. It is harder for us to do it when we have situations like Guantanamo, where we've suspended habeas corpus. To the extent that we are not being true to our values and our ideals, that sends a negative message to the world, and it gives us less leverage then when we want to deal with countries that are abusing human rights. So I think it's part and parcel with a larger program of us restoring the traditions that made this country great and made us admired around the world.
Thank you.
Carol, can I just mention one thing here, by the way? Just last evening, thanks to colleagues here, I authored legislation on sanctions on Darfur, economic. It passed unanimously through the United States Senate last night. So there is some good news on these issues. It's happening very quickly.
Thank you. Now, let's hear free statements from the next two candidates, Senator Biden and then Governor Richardson. You have 30 seconds.
Well, you know, folks talk about this election being about experience or change. It's really about action and pragmatic solutions. And that's what I've done my whole career, the Violence Against Women Act, the crime bill, the Balkans, helping stop the genocide there. And ladies and gentlemen, you know, leadership is also about knowing who you are, what you believe, and what your priorities are, and what you'll do. In my case, I'll start by ending that war in Iraq, and also trust the American people. They're ready. They're ready to get up. There's a hymn in my church, our church, some of us here. It says, "May he raise you up on eagle's wings and bear you on the breath of dawn and let the light shine on you." It's time to raise this country up. The American people are genuinely ready to do that.
Governor?
Well, I'm going to use my 30 seconds to thank the people of Iowa for putting us through this very good process of electing a president. And I say that. and I am going to focus on one issue because I'm concerned about the fact that in the media and in the last debate, the Iraq War was not discussed. And somehow we're losing sight that that's the most important fundamental issue affecting our country. Not just because we need to come together as a country, and this war has divided us enormously, but also because the key to what we do and give healthcare a chance and education a chance and our kids a chance and creating jobs a chance. And 38 Americans died in November, our troops. We've got thousands, over 60,000 with mental trauma and PTSD coming back, and we have a VA system that is not responding. This is such an urgent fundamental issue, and I can tell you, as I've gone to every one of the 99 counties in Iowa, this is the #1 issue affecting not just this country, but Iowa caucus goers.
Thank you. I want to take on a new issue. Most of you have laid out plans to move toward energy independence. Those plans have costs attached and potential negative impacts, at least in the short term. For example, maybe more expensive cars, more expensive feed for livestock, impacts on coal-producing states. So what would you do to turn it into a net benefit for the American economy, and how long might that take? Senator Biden?
It will take to begin it won't take long at all. We should increase the mileage for automobiles, require it. We should make sure that every new car sold in America beginning 2009 is a flex fuel automobile. We should be investing a great deal more in cellulosics research because corn ethanol is not going to take us the whole way. But the bottom line is you got to make it a fundamental priority. You got to say that we are going to make a major change. That requires a significant investment in alternative energy, renewable energy, moving from 2% to 20% by the end of this next decade in 2020. But the bottom line here is the president's got to make this a moral crusade for the American people. We're going to have to sacrifice to be able to get by and for the next couple of years in order to be able to get a handle on the energy crisis. Governor Richardson?
Well, yeah, I like to think that I made my state a clean energy state. I was energy secretary. It's going to take an energy revolution. And I regret that this morning the U.S. Senate, despite the best efforts of all here, killed an energy bill that would have given more tax credits and incentives to renewable energy. And I think this is tragic. I think fuel efficiency standards in this country should be 50 miles per gallon, not 35. I think that's pathetic. I think we need to have 30% renewable sources in all our electricity by the year 2020. You asked about a year. I think 2020. Reduce our consumption of oil by 50% by having flex fuel vehicles, 50 miles per gallon. Also, we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And I would do so by 90% with a cap and trade program. But most importantly, it's going to take the American people, and it's going to take a president on a bully pulpit asking the American people to sacrifice a little bit. And I will. And that means being more sensitive to mass transit, to appliances, to air conditioning, to the way we live. And if we all do this without mandates, but we all do this, we can reduce our dependence on foreign oil, which is enormously unhealthy. 65% of our oil is imported. We're paying close to $100 to OPEC today. This has to be an energy revolution led by a president.
Senator Dodd, can you try that in 30 seconds?
Well, look, first of all, you're starting here. You've had wonderful efforts here. Governor Vilsack started. Governor Culver with the Power Fund adopted with the state legislature this year is a great step forward. One state making a difference. We're borrowing $1 billion every single day to buy foreign oil. $1 billion every day. We're not going to wish ourselves out of this problem here. I'm the only candidate on this forum here who's advocated a corporate carbon tax. Now, I'm fully aware of the implications of suggesting a tax, but it's not enough to state the goals. We've got to have the courage to stand up and tell you how you get there. And until you deal with the price differentials here, cheaper fuel is always going to win out, unfortunately. So you need to be able to tax this carbon, which is killing us and killing this planet. And I'm pleased that Al Gore and Bill Bradley have called our plan the most honest and bold of the energy plans here. This is the best gift our generation can give to the next. But if we're not honest about it and tough about it, it's going to be nothing more than a lot of speeches and nothing much will change.
Senator Clinton?
Well, I think it's imperative that we address this issue. And I think your question was, well, will how we do it affect the average American? Yes, it will. That's part of what we're going to have to tell people. I advocate a cap and trade system. What I want to do with the auction of pollution permits is to take a lot of that money and invest it in new technologies, new ways of getting to our objectives that I've outlined in my energy plan. I want to use some of it, though, to cushion the costs that will come onto the American consumer. But it's not just enough to have an energy plan, not just enough to tackle global warming. We've got to enlist the American people the way we did in a previous generation for the Apollo program. As a little girl, I remember being thrilled about that and feeling that there was something I could do. My fifth grade teacher said it was to study math and science, but it gave me an idea of actually contributing to my country. This has to call for a new form of American patriotism. So when people, particularly on the other side of the aisle, talk about how we will wreck the economy and impose all of these costs, that is what is happening right now. We cannot sustain the current energy profile in this country. That's why we have to act, and we will act in a way that brings the country together and lifts us up and gives us a feeling that we are, once again, reaching for the stars, only we're going to do it right here on Earth.
Senator Obama?
This is a moral imperative. I've got a 9-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old daughter, and I want to make sure that the planet is as beautiful for them as it was for me. Now, what that means is there are going to be some increases initially in electricity prices, for example, if we have a cap and trade system. Over time, technology will adapt because investors and people who are looking to make money will see that they can make money through green technologies. We're already seeing this. In Keokuk, they're just opening a plant right now that is going to provide 400 well-paying jobs to build wind turbines. And that's the promise of the future. But in order for this to happen, we've got to be courageous enough to not just talk about it in front of the Sierra Club or organizations that are already sympathetic to us. When I announced my proposal to increase fuel efficiency standards on cars, I went to Detroit in front of the automakers and said they had to change their ways. And I have to say the room was really quiet and nobody clapped. But that's okay because part of what the next president has to do is not just tell the American people what they want to hear, has to tell them what they need to hear.
Senator Edwards.